many of you have done that, right? And then I gravitated to helping out with the middle schoolers. That didn't turn out too well. As a high schooler, I wasn't very mature, and the middle schoolers are even less mature, and so we bumped heads a lot. During that time, I just found them to be really annoying. It wasn't my cup of tea. And then once I got to college, they asked me to be a core member, and I started doing high school ministry. And I just fell more and more in love with youth ministry, helping out the teens, the tweens, and then anybody that was younger. I think myself, I had received a lot from the people who helped me, the people who I was able to look up to. And so it was something that I really desired. And so when I learned about St. Don Bosco, I found him to be a very interesting saint because that was his main ministry, right? That was who he was called to serve. Not all of us are diocesan priests like the two of us. Some of them are in religious orders, and we know that the Salesians focus on youth ministry. And the thing about Don Bosco was that it was at a time when a lot of these children were abandoned. They were left on the streets to fend for themselves. And what he did, what he was known for, was he was known to be very close to the Blessed Mother. And he would ask the Blessed Mother to help him, and he would build oratories in places that nobody thought that they would be able to be built. He would build these oratories, and then he would serve them. And I think the most profound thing that I remember of his ministry was that most of these kids weren't even religious. They weren't Christians. They weren't Catholic. They came from all different backgrounds. Yet what he was able to do was he was able to sit there and listen. He was a man who desired to get to know who they were. Why? Because nobody else in the world gave them that time. Nobody else wanted to listen to them. Everybody abandoned these children, left them on the streets to fend for themselves. But Don Bosco looked at them and he said that there's no such thing as a bad boy. No such thing as a bad child. They just grow up in bad situations, and then they do things because, that's ultimately what we do as humans. If we're fending for ourselves, we're gonna steal if we desire to survive. And so, in his biography, they speak about with him, was that he was a man who desired to sit down to listen to the deepest, darkest secrets that they were willing to give. Does that sound familiar? We call it the sacrament of confession. These kids so open themselves up to him, trusting fully in this person that God has put into their lives, the one person that was willing to listen to them. And he would sit there and listen to them for hours. Sometimes he'd be listening to confessions for 5 to 6 hours, taking the time with each and every one of those children. And what a beautiful opportunity we have today, this week, on this pilgrimage, to do likewise. The Father desires to listen to each and every one of us, to hear our hearts, to hear our brokenness, to hear our woundedness. And what a great opportunity then here on this pilgrimage, to go to the places where Jesus himself walked, to go to the places where the saints themselves walked, to go where God became man so that he could be with each and every one of his children, to be able to listen to each and every one of you, to remind you that he cares about all of you. So no matter what you're going through, no matter what has happened, no matter what you have done, know that the Father is so much greater than any saint that he's put here. And although we can look up to St. Don Bosco, who had this desire to listen to confessions, to sit there, the Father desires to do that on a daily basis with you. And what a beautiful opportunity we are given now to sit with him in these places that we will visit, to allow him to touch the depths of our heart and to heal the places that we need healing. Now, that also means that we ourselves have to have hearts and ears that are willing to listen. And so, I know for me, listening isn't the easiest thing. You can ask Father Nathan. I had to grow in that in seminary. I was always the one who was talking all the time, not listening very well. But I grew in that. And so it's possible to be able to enter into that silence, to grow, to learn how to listen, to allow the Lord to speak to you. I can tell you this much, I wouldn't be up here speaking to you, and I never imagined I would, if it wasn't for the Lord coming to me and taking the time to listen to my brokenness, to my woundedness. And so let us be like Don Bosco, and let us ask him to teach us how to be more open to the will of God in the same way that he was. Asking for the Blessed Mother's intercession, who he was so close to, who each and every one of us should be close to, because ultimately our mother leads us to who? Her son, Jesus Christ. So the deeper in love we fall with Mary, the deeper in love she shows us how to love her son. And so we ask for St. Don Bosco's intercessions. We say, St. Don Bosco, pray for us.